right. So we are excited once again this morning to have this another awesome group of farmers with us. They have taught me a lot just in the preparation for this, and we're excited to share these 5 farmers and the creativity and generosity that they have to offer you today with their ideas and their practices and innovations. So first we will meet John Thomas Hodges from Modern Heritage Farm. He's co-owner and full-time farmer there in Glendale, Kentucky. And they are a small-scale diversified vegetable farm focusing on low-tech organic growing methods to produce the healthiest products in a way that improves human, soil, and environmental health. And I will make a pitch in a minute when you're seeing the field days slide. You'll notice that they are hosting a field day this year, as is Jen Rankin at Rankin Farm. She is a retired registered nurse and a current small animal veterinarian. And together with family, she and her husband, Chris, purchased their 244-acre farm in Anderson County in 2012 and were certified organic in 2017 and since then. They raise and sell organic poultry, pork, and eggs at local markets and their on-farm store. We're also going to learn from Patrick Ranval, who's the horticulturist at the Magney Legacy Ridge Farm, a certified organic farm in Princeton, Kentucky. Patrick holds a BS in agriculture from Murray State, go Racers. When not working on the farm, he is spending quality time with his wife, Hannah, or working to develop his ag records software, Seed Story Online. We also welcome today Tony Silvernail, who moved from Michigan to Kentucky 28 years ago to work with KSU, Kentucky State University, and attend graduate school at the University of Kentucky. For 15 years, he managed the organic research projects at KSU, and in 2007, he started his own farm, Beyond the Bridge Organic Farm in Franklin County, certified organic. We'll round out the farmer hacks today with John Wilhoit. John and his wife, Sue Churchill, operate Thistle Farm in southern Woodford County. They have a flock of Katahdin sheep, and John has been raising and selling organic vegetables for the past 5 years, certified for the past 3. John was an extension specialist in biosystem and ag engineering at the University of Kentucky from 2008 to 2016. So grateful for all of them. We'll get rolling. And up first, a video from John Thomas Hodges, Modern Heritage Farm in Glendale, Kentucky.
I am here to show you today a tool that we implemented to help with our ALLIUM crops. And I will be talking over the video. We tried to shoot it in the field, but the wind made it too hard to understand. But the tool is very simple to construct, and we were able to make it with supplies that we had around the farm. It's just a 2x4 frame there, cut at the width of all of our beds, which is 30 inches, and then holes drilled in that 2x4, and we inserted a handle that had been cut down off of an old tool to make the actual dibbles. And they are fully adjustable. You can see the screws there that attach it, and you can just back the screw out and then tamp it down to get your desired height. And you can see the holes that's already in it. The very top one is for leaks, which we do at a 9-inch depth, and that allows us to not have to go back and hill them. They will fill in through cultivation and rain and get the white tips there that everybody likes on the leaks. But the tool has allowed us to cut out a lot of steps in our planting, where we used to have to measure the bed and then mark the rows and then come back and dig and then plant. But we can now take this through one pass, and it allows us to be ready to plant. It pre-measures the distance between the plants and also the correct depth of the hole. So we always like to be able to implement systems that increase efficiency, and this tool has shown to do that. And I think people can add on to this design. It's nothing complicated, and I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but we have just kind of been able to use this to meet our needs. And another tip is to the dibbles there are rounded off, and that will help keep the dirt from compacting to the bottom of the dibbles when you pull it out. In this video, you can see this is a bed that we had dibbled, and this is the final product. It really helps keep your rows straight, which makes cultivation easier, and irrigation also. In this video, you can see Jessica coming back behind me, planting the garlic bulbs down in the holes that have already been dibbled. And it's a very quick process if the holes are already dibbled. And after she plants these, we will come back with our bed rake and fill in the holes. Then we will apply around 4 to 5 inches of compost over top of the beds to help with weed prevention and moisture retention. We do not irrigate our garlic. We've always had good luck with applying enough compost that it will help hold the moisture in.
All right, John Thomas, any final words you want to add to that?
I just want to thank you for having the opportunity to share this, and hopefully somebody out there can use this to kind of increase the efficiencies on their farm. Simple design, and if there's any questions at all, I am happy to answer them, or just reach out to our farm. But thank you again, and thank Oak too for these sessions. It's a huge help to have resources like this for small farms.
Well, thank you for being part of it. It takes our village. Want to let you all know that I see a couple questions coming in the chat. A reminder that that's exactly what we want you to do. Put your questions there. We'll come back to them for all farmers after all 5 farmers have given their presentation. So put them in there while you're thinking about them. You'll forget about them after you see this next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. So thanks, John Thomas and Jessica Hodges, for that one. I think I saw an earthworm make a cameo appearance in that, perhaps. Appreciate you all. We'll head just a bit northeast now to Rankin Farm in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, with Jen Rankin.
Hi guys, I'm Jen Rankin. This is one of our hoop coops. So we initially saw a version of this at K-State back in the day, and we just have kind of adapted these to fit our needs. We have used this or a version of this for all of our pastured poultry. We've used them for our pigs for several years. We've used them for alpacas, for goats. So it's a really versatile structure. Basically, it's 2 standard cattle panels formed into a hoop just on a frame. For the birds, we put a full 12 by 16 tarp across with hardware cloth, or that's some construction fencing underneath the tarp. We have had a raccoon chew through the tarp for our birds, so we always do that with them. For pigs, we leave the front open. We don't put anything on the front, and I usually will make the tarp a little bit shorter on the sides because the pigs will like to destroy that. So about a 12 by 10 or so tarp for the pigs. And then we actually, with the pigs, do a 3/4 inch plywood across the back. The poultry all have 1/4 inch plywood across the back. And then we've kind of, just experimented with different door styles. This is more of a permanent kind of hoop coop village. And so we have made flap doors for some of these. For our pastured poultry, we do full front doors just because the broilers have a harder time getting in and out of those flap doors. But it's a really versatile structure. Cost wise on this, I just priced this week is quite a bit more than we started building these. I think we're at about $675 for these, as is for the poultry. And when we started these, they were about $250. So big price jump there, but we do have some of these that are still in use currently that we've used for over 5 or 6 years. So in the long haul, I think these are really versatile for all livestock. So yeah, they've been really helpful. On our pasture poultry, we have put wheels on the back of them just to make them a little bit easier to move. They also have eye bolts on the front and the back, so you can hook them to an ATV, UTV, and drag them. And then for these stationary guys, we use the eye bolts and some rebar just to keep them down. I don't usually stake the pastured poultry guys. We've had 30-mile-an-hour winds and not had any issues with any of them blowing. So yeah, we on these more permanent houses, we put some layer boxes in, we put roosts in for them, but it's really versatile on what you need. You can pretty much do anything with these guys. So I hope it's helpful for everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. We love the poultry sounds. I just wanted to keep playing that, but I know that your voice is what people came to listen to. So appreciate your sharing your birds with us
Thank
today.
you.
And keep those questions coming. We're going to travel now to the far west corner of Kentucky. We're going to bounce out to Magney Legacy Ridge Farm in Princeton. And we're also going to bounce with Patrick Ranval's video to YouTube. Oh, y'all got to see that. Yes.
The white-tailed deer. They're beautiful, majestic, and as a small farmer, they're your worst nightmare. That's why, at the Magney Legacy Ridge Farm, we've created the Deer Defense Grid.
Hi, I'm Hannah and this is Patrick Ranval. We are showing you for the farm hack today our Deer Defense Grid, which we developed 2 years ago for the Magney Legacy Ridge Farm.
The Deer Defense Grid is a simple but powerful tool for deer mitigation on a small farm. It utilizes readily available materials like electrical resistors and movable electric fence in order to physically obstruct the movement of deer across valuable crops. 2 years ago, our farm suffered catastrophic losses due to deer, on the orders of thousands of dollars in a single night. At that point, my wife Hannah and I decided we were going to come up with a comprehensive solution to exclude deer from our valuable vegetable crops. Hannah had experience working with movable electric livestock fence, and from that we came up with a solution that worked. It needed to be easy to put up, effective against keeping deer out, and also allow for the incremental harvest of crops such as kale and Swiss chard that require our employees to traverse the beds. The solution we came to was what we called the Deer Defense Grid. As you can see, it is a pattern of electric wire fencing and resistors utilizing only the third and fourth rungs of the resistors, such that deer are physically excluded from moving across a plot. At this point, we use it on almost all our deer-sensitive crops on the farm. It has saved us tens of thousands of dollars.
So, as my husband has already stated, this was infrastructure that we had from our rotational grazing of lambs. And it's pretty inexpensive as resources that you can get either by online dealers or at your local Tractor Supply or farm store. This has been kind of a hodgepodge of we've gotten from both online stores and at our local farm stores. But basically what you're looking at here is one of the deer's most favorite vegetable crops that we have that they will munch on. And I'm going to show you how to string it and protect your crops from the deer. So we're going to start by hooking into an existing fence. You can see that we've got it already set up for several of the beds, and I want to start to cover these 2 beds here. So I'm going to start by hooking into an existing fence by just tying the electrical wire to itself. And it doesn't matter as long as the metal pieces are touching. Once it's tied into an existing fence, I start by going around this 3rd resistor piece. You'll notice a pole comes into the ground and it's got a foot, and then it's got usually 4 prongs where you can hook into. You can just step it into place where you need it. And then I like to, as I was just saying, go to this 3rd resistor prong and hook it in there. Then I'm going to create an outer line where this will create a deterrent, so if a deer walks straight into it, it should hopefully touch this fence line. And I'm going to go all the way around. And then sometimes as you're coming around, you'll need to adjust where your resistor is. That's all right if it goes lower. And then I'm going to come back up. And this is the key point about the deer fence. We tried many iterations before we figured this out, but the electrical current acts as a deterrent. You may still get deer in your plot, but the idea is you want to make sure that there's as many places that the deer can touch and get shocked so that they don't want to do it again. So I create a zigzag, throw my leg over, and then I come across. I hook it into this top line, the top prong. And then I come back over here and I'll zigzag down the whole bed so that there's multiple places where the deer can get shocked and hopefully they won't want to come back. You just go in every other pole as you're jumping down the line. Deer are also, they don't have any depth perception, so adding this zigzag allows it to be more confusing to where they can't tell is the wire close or far away. This can be done 1 person or 2 person. We started out by doing it 2 person just so that we could get a feel for it, me and my husband. But afterwards, we both have gotten good enough that it can be done by 1 person, depending on the size of your plot, between 30 minutes to an hour. And then I'll hook it in to this last one, and then I need to attach it to the battery.
So the last step is going to be to connect it into your power supply. The power supplies have actually come a long way, even since we've started using them. Originally we had a traditional one that ran off a car battery, and even with the heavy car battery, it was absolutely worth it for us to install the deer grid. Now the power supplies are much better. They're these lightweight solar powered ones. These hold a good amount of charge and can run 2 miles of fence on just 1 panel. So we actually have multiple plots hooked into just 1 power supply. In order to complete the deer grid, you do need to connect your electric wire to your power supply. There should be a connection labeled fence. It's red, it's the one that's not your grounding connection. And all you do is take a little excess of your electric wire, loop it around, and then put the screw cap back on. And as long as those metal pieces within the electric wire are contacting your box, it will function. There's one more step that we're going to go over if you haven't interacted with this sort of electric fence before, and that is that it needs to be grounded. This is what's called a grounding pole. It's just a big metal pole that goes in the ground. We actually have it connected to a wire that's like an old lamp wire. I mean, they make fancy alligator clip wires to this. This is just kind of something we've rigged together, but the big thing is You just need a wire that connects to this pole and then stick it about a foot in the ground. And that just helps make the electrical connection so that when a deer or another animal contacts the fence, it gets shocked. This system has been absolutely invaluable to us, and it improves not only the quality of the vegetables that we're able to deliver to our customers, but also their food safety. One final important thing to note, if you haven't worked with this type of electric fence before, it is very important to keep the electric wire from touching the ground. It's actually that connection that the deer makes that connects its hooves to the ground to the electric fence that creates the shock. So if this is touching the ground or some plant matter somewhere, it's going to short out and not work as well as it can. For the spool, we have these plastic crates that are used to hold things, and it does a good job of holding the spool up off the ground so that it doesn't connect with any of the grass or brush or anything that would short it out. The last thing you need to do in order to get your deer defense grid working is dramatically shout, "Activate the deer defense grid!" and press the power supply.
We hope you've enjoyed our video about the deer defense grid.
And we hope it helps your farm as much as it has helped ours.
So thanks so much to Patrick and Hannah for that. I'm impressed that Hannah can run that fast. We'll get back to you a little bit later in Q&A, Patrick. We're going to return to Central Kentucky to Beyond the Bridge Organics with Tony Silvernail. All right, you're muted. There you go.
I'm unmuted now. All right. Hi, I'm Tony Silvernail. I'm the owner, operator, manager, general dishwasher for Beyond the Bridge. What I'm going to show you is sort of a process that I've developed over the years on my farm that helps me switch from my fall crops to my spring crops, my winter spring crops. I have two main planting seasons, one in August, September, and I grow a variety of greens that are cut and come back. And usually by the beginning of December, end of December, the plants start really waning after you harvest them a couple times. So you have to flip the beds. So what I'm going to show you here today is basically a 5-step process for flipping the beds. And the tools that I use is one is the BCS rototiller right here. When I'm first working it into the ground, right now, this is my lettuce house. As you can see, it's sort of peaked there. So I'll work it once there, working in the ground. And actually what I'll do is I'll rotate this to where my spinach will actually then follow into where my lettuces were. So this tunnel here will actually be spinach here in the spring. So we can go to the next slide. That's me doing my Benny Hill imitation there. So what I do then after I rototill, I will rake it up all into the center of the bed. I sort of broke this down all into time too. Rototilling only takes about 5 minutes. This is a good farm fit exercise when you really want to get a sweat on and you go with it. It's a bed rake, standard bed rake. Like most of my tools, shameless plug here, I get them from Earth Tools and it works great on doing this, and you'll see this bed rake again. And my 4th step, which is leveling the beds. So it works really well in a variety of circumstances here. And right here, I'm just raking up the beds. We can go to the next one, Jen. And then after I rake it, I'll let it sit for a couple weeks. This obviously is another tunnel. I wasn't too consistent because usually I'm flipping a lot of beds at this time in December. So I will rototill it after I let it sit there in a mound for a couple weeks. This allows the plant material to break down, and then it can rototill up. All that I plant is all direct seeded. So I have to have a good bed there with the plant material broken down into the soil and have a decently smooth soil surface for what you'll see here in a minute is my Jeng seeder that I use to direct seed all my greens and everything like that. So here's the 3rd step, which then again takes about 5 minutes to run up and down the tunnel with that. And up for the next one, we're sort of buzzing right through these. This is again using the bed rake. I level it off I really find that this is necessary with the Jang seeder. I'm not sure how many of you out there are familiar with Jang. The one that I have is a 6-row seeder. This will be in the next slide. I have found it invaluable as far as my production in the tunnel, as far as getting a good stand of crops, getting good spreads on my rows, everything. It's worked really nice. That was one of the best purchases I think I've had besides my BCS is the Jang seeder and also the bed rake here. I use this a lot. Well, I guess we're up for the next slide. And this is my Jang seeder. Here in this bed, what I will do, you sort of see me stopping and bending over and, doing that. I'm actually changing the seeds. This is a brassica. This is my brassica tunnel here for this winter and spring. This was done on July 9th that I did this. And I actually had germination of my arugula and my red Russian kale within 6 days. And this is in January. So it works really well. This Jang seeder, like I said, is a 6-row. Little shameless plug here. One of the sponsors for the Oak Conference is Kentucky State University. And this Jang seeder came from their small farm grants, which is available. And it's something that I suggest everybody here in Kentucky to look into is the small farm grant that KSU runs. It's great. And these Jang seeders are fairly expensive. They're about $2,000 to get a system that I have. But in the high tunnel, they're awesome. They work so nice. So after this, then we just start watering and then just start weeding. The next step here, just me, ho, ho, ho. So this will be the next exercise that I do for the next couple of months. The stuff that I'm planting right now in December and in January, I'll start harvesting some of that towards the middle end of February, and I'll take it all the way into June. And at that point, I till up all my tunnels and I put in a summer cover crop of cowpea, which I'll seed that about twice to build up the soil. Because as you can imagine, all the work that I'm doing in the soil here does break it down. So I spend the summer months building it back up, and I also amend the soil with compost and different stuff like that. So there you are. If there's any questions, we'll catch up with you after Mr. Wilhoit here in the next one. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. It's pretty fun to see you running up and down at top speed in your beds there. All right. So there's John Wilhoit has created a way that you don't have to do as much running. If you're up for this, we're going to travel up the Kentucky River Valley to Thistle's End Farm and join John Wilhoit.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is a machine that I developed when I was an extension specialist at UK. It's a 3-wheel machine that uses furrow guidance. It's a wide stance machine. It straddles 2 beds at once. The steering uses chains and sprockets. It cannot go through a gearbox because the furrow guidance wheels out front have to be able to steer through it. And first pass through the field, the narrow front wheels create a furrow, and then those are used to guide the machine for every subsequent pass. Right, next slide. Next slide, yeah. So this shows it, go back, yeah, this shows it from the front. Go back one side. Well, okay. You can see the guidance arm in the front, in the furrow, guiding the machine. This also illustrates straddling 2 beds at once. The front wheels are on 8-foot centers, 96 inches. So I use 48-inch bed spacing for all my beds. And you can see the way this works. Each adjacent pass with the machine shares a furrow. So once you break ground for your first row, then you have exact spacing all the way across the field. All right, next slide. Okay, I mentioned it straddles 2 rows at once, but you only operate on 1 bed at a time. And I have a little category 0 electric powered 3-point hitch for operating on that row. And you can see that in this slide. Those are stock items. They make them for utility vehicles. Okay, one of the biggest advantages of this system is that you can rig up implements to do just about anything, and the implements are very lightweight. Many of the different things we've done, one of the main ones is I use hilling discs to make raised beds, have a fertilizer hopper to distribute fertilizer. Typically do that in conjunction with the hilling discs. You use it for cultivating, laying drip tape. That's what's shown in the bottom picture there is the drip tape layer. I use it to strike off the tops of beds, planting potatoes. I have it rigged up with cedars. I actually have a couple of inexpensive earthway cedars. Use it for direct seeding corn, beans, and okra. You can also transplant from it. I've rigged up some for applying mulch and also for laying paper mulch. And then next slide, a few more pictures. The picture upper left shows the bed striker. On the right there, you can see it with the 2 cedars for planting a double row. Sometimes I use it for single rows. And then in the bottom picture, you can see transplanting from the machine. Everything I do uses trickle irrigation. And so when you use this for transplanting, you run the water first so that you're transplanting into wet spots. Okay. Now I have some videos, and the videos, excuse me, I have voice problems. The videos all show planting potatoes. That's one of the crops that I've had the most success with this machine system. Okay, first video, go ahead. So that's a video of the machine with the hilling discs and fertilizing at the same time. So you can see using this machine to make raised beds. I usually go over and do the raised beds twice for every bed. My beds are all 100 feet long. Okay. Second video. This is planting potatoes. You can see the white tube. That's for dropping the seed pieces. You can see the spacing there. Normally, I have a double chain for pulling the soil back over the seed pieces, but in this video, that chain is left off so that you can see the spacing of the potatoes. And I have a tub up there. I have a tub ready with enough seed pieces for 1 row. Okay. Finally, in the third video, this is using the hilling discs to cultivate and throw soil up around the growing potato plants. Also, you can see in this video some S-tine cultivators operating behind the drive wheel of the machine to help keep weeds down the road. I do want to point out the way this machine works. You'll notice about the driver in the third video, there is no driver. And that's because the machine can steer itself. And I'm able to get off the machine and take videos. So anyway, that's my 3-wheel machine system. It uses for road guidance.
John, thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm sorry, I feel for you with the voice. Thank you for working through that with us.
I hope you're good to hear.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll return to all 5 of these farmers and give them a break, but we wanted to share these opportunities for continued on-farm learning with and from other farmers. Mark your calendars for all these dates. Registration is open for that Modern Heritage Farm date in April. So you can go to our website and get to that. You can hit the field days button in the resources on Whova and get to that as well. Mark your calendar. You can go to several of these farms and they're all gonna offer you more learning from farmers just like these. Away from that and back to the farmers, we're gonna bring all of the farmers back now, and I will bounce around with them with the questions that you have shared in the chat. Keep those questions coming if they come up for you at any point in time, and we'll try to get to them in this remaining bit of time. So let's see, I will remind you farmer speakers that you are likely muted, so just pay attention to that before you answer your question. Make sure you're unmuted when it comes to you. And John Thomas, sorry, Jen, you get to go after that. John Thomas, we're going to start with you. There was a lot of excitement about your tool, and just right off the bat, I'll answer one question by saying it is a DIBBLER, D-I-B-B-L-E-R, DIBBLER, and wondering, 2 questions quickly. What is the diameter of the DIBBLER? And what do you think about the DIBBLER being a 2-row and using spacing to do 2 rows at once?
Yeah, the diameter, it's just a common handle. I would, maybe an inch, inch and a half, possibly diameter. It was just a handle we took off of another tool, just something big enough, bigger than the clothes would be. And then the double row is a great idea because, that would take another step out of having to do the other spacing. But we'll take a landscape rake similar to the one Tony was using there and put PEX piping on the individual pieces on it, and then we use that to mark, and kind of got to the point where we've done that so much that we can just almost know kind of how far that 8-inch space that we're trying to get is. But that is an excellent idea to make a double row that would increase efficiency.
Yeah, so Timothy, thanks for the clarification on that. That was his question, and I guess that was my brilliance in coming up with that. Timothy had a different brilliance, which was meaning that the first row of dibbles would be placed in the holes of the previous holes, thus aligning the spacing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to move forward to Jen for a moment. Thanks, John Thomas. So we've got a couple of questions on here that are asking for pictures of the frame of the poultry houses without the covers. And so if you don't have any of those, Jen, maybe if you send me one, I can throw it up in Whova at some point.
Sure. Yeah.
And are they 16-foot cattle panels? And what kind of material are you putting at the bottom of the coops?
So yeah, standard cattle, whatever standard is. Yeah, I think they're 16-foot. So the frame is 4x4s. They're 101 inches, which is like almost 8.5 feet. Well, a little less than that. Square. And I have I'll get you some better photos because it's really easier to see without the tarp on it. I just didn't actually have any available at the time. But yeah, just 2x4s in a frame. The cattle panels are bent and then hooked together with zip ties. And then I use fence staples to staple the cattle panel into the 2x4s at the bottom. But I'll get some photos for you.
Great, thanks. Patrick, we get to hear you unmuted there, and a couple of questions. Are you, from Kelsey, are you running the fence up and down each bed?
So I think we kind of addressed that in the video, but there's lines that go every 2 bed, parallel to your beds. And then between that, there's actually that zigzag pattern. And that zigzag is really what keeps deer from moving around if they do happen to hop the first outer perimeter of fence. And that's what we found to be really effective.
And do you just turn it off when you need to work and harvest from those beds, or do you dismantle it?
We generally use it on the stuff that is faster turnover. So like the lettuce, especially with the fabric, there's not really a whole lot of maintenance during the time at which it is growing. And then when it comes to harvest, we just turn it off. And you do want to make sure it's off. It really stings a lot, but for the most part, we turn it off. There could be things like if you were going to come in and cultivate, you would have to take it down. You know, if you were going to use a mechanical tool like a BCS to get down there, but for just hand cultivation, there's actually enough space that you, being a human, can kind of maneuver around it.
All right, thanks. Speaking of BCS, that was a good segue. Tony, we've got a couple of BCS questions for you.
Oh, goody,
And
my favorite.
no worries on the shameless plugs of our sponsors. We like that. Earth Tools is a sponsor of all of our conference series this year, as they usually are for our conferences. And Joel from Earth Tools will actually be doing in the Northern Kentucky event a session on small tractor maintenance. So mark your calendar. The cost range of the cedar, it looks like did somebody put that in the chat already, the answer to that? And then,
Okay.
oh,
Well,
okay,
no,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I jumped.
No, go ahead, answer that one. What's the cost
Okay,
range of that cedar?
when I got it a couple years ago, the 6-row Jang was about $2,200, I believe. And then you buy the rollers. They have rollers that go into the actual cedars, and they were about $24 to $28 per roller. So if you're doing 3 to 4 at a time, you know, there's another $100 plus. So, and that was covered under the small farm grants that KSU does have. And that's what I use. Once I retired from KSU, I could actually have access to their grants. I'm an organic farmer, so I was able to get that. And it's a great, I mean, the granting is great, and the actual product Jang for me works really well in my situation.
Yeah, so another sponsor plug there, KSU, check out the details in the trade show for them. The deadline is approaching, it's every other month, so get on that one if you haven't already. And just a plug for not a sponsor, why aren't they a sponsor? Johnny's is not a conference sponsor right now, but they are offering a member discount. And so if you're an Oak member and you're gonna get your equipment from them, remember to use your 5% discount when you are making that order. So thank you, Tony. We're moving on to John.
Was there a question on the BCS, Jenny?
Yeah, but I'm gonna come back to you. You don't get them all right now.
Okay.
Keeping with the tractors, Mr. Wilhoit, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. And the biggest question for you is about, do you have plans for this? Can other people learn from you how to make this other than what they see in this recording in your slides?
When I was at the University of Kentucky, we did have a set of plans that were posted and available. That's been about 6 years ago, and I'm not sure whether they are still up on their website. But I do have some plans that I'd be happy to communicate with somebody. I didn't put any contact info, but I'd be happy to put my email address that is not available commercially. But it is something that has the potential for somebody else to build it. I mean, the concept's relatively simple, but it is a pretty substantial machine. I mean, it takes a lot of fabrication.
Yeah, so I did just put a link in the chat. This link works for me for the plans that are on still the UK site. And I have a couple of other related links that talk about, you had a Southern SARE grant for this,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. I've got the link for that. I haven't checked it to make sure it works, so maybe some of the other Oak staff
Yeah,
can
Jenny,
tag team with that. And
should I type in my email address?
yeah, you can put that in the chat. I'm gonna move on to a next question while you're doing that. Back up to the top, John Thomas. What is in your compost? Are you putting any fertilizer down before you dibble?
Yeah, our compost, it's just a shredded leaf compost that we use here on the farm. And then fertilizer, we do soil sample and then amend accordingly. And we also soak the clothes in a fish and seaweed solution. That kind of inoculates that clove with the beneficial biology to kind of give it a good start. And it allows the roots to go ahead and start being established a little quicker too. So that, we've seen that as a benefit on the fertilizer side of it.
Yeah. All right, great. Sorry, I was seeing a question about the wood that's used with. Are you using a specific kind of wood so that's not rotting over time? How long has it been lasting you in general?
That one is about 3 years old now, but you can, I'm sure you'd have to look at what kind of oil, but put something to keep it kind of moist. But yeah, the dryness of it seems to be what kind of hurts it the most as far as compaction on the dibbles. But yeah, and I'm sure there's probably other things out there to improve it with that.
Yeah. Well, thanks a bunch, Jen Rankin. Back to you. I'm going to throw a couple questions at you at once. How are you dealing with predators with all of that? And could you share the total cost of the hoop again?
The total cost on the coop, so for the chicken version, which has more stuff on it because the pig version just has an open front, but the chicken version is about $675 right now with everything, tarp, hardware, lumber, which is high. But plywood is $50 a sheet right now. So, and then predator issues. The only predator issue I've had is a raccoon chewing through the tarp. And that was before I put hardware cloth on top of the cattle panels underneath the tarp. So since I have done that, I have not had any predator issues.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, are you using any standard voltage or amp? Is it?
No, don't get bogged down in the numbers. Think about the size of a deer. Yeah, it's like roughly a sheep or a goat. Anything that's spec'd out for those sorts of animals will deter a deer. And as far as worrying about neighborhood animals or whatever, like it will deter them, but like it's not going to kill them. Like we have a feral cat that runs around and gets its tail up in it, and I'm sure it has been shocked before, but it is still kicking around. So it's a deterrent, but don't get lost in the details of it.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you. Tony, 2 questions. Back to that BCS thing. How deep do you till with your BCS and how wide are your beds?
My beds are approximately about 4 foot wide. I just sort of eye them, and that allows me 2 runs, a run up and a run down with the Jang seeder. And I have like 4 main beds in each tunnel, and then I'll do like 2 rows on the outside here in the spring. And then as far as tilling, when I'm working the beds, I lower it all the way down. I'm bringing everything up. I'm really sort of chewing it up. I'm not, I'm trying to mix everything up and break it down. So in those situations where I'm at, I'm going deep with it and everything. And that's, for me, that's fine. I'm talking with another guy. There's a new piece of equipment that we're looking at possibly buying together. One like these rotary hoe type systems that they have on the BCS. I forget the exact name. It might be just called rotary hoe, but it goes really shallow. And we're talking, we're not sure if it'll work or not, but we split the cost of it and try to share it, and we'll see if it works. And here again, this is something from Earth Tools that we might do, and that would possibly help save some soil, as far as breakdown, because I'm well aware, from my background of being organic, and what I'm doing is breaking down the soil. So I spend a lot of time and effort in the off season building the soil back up, essentially, so I can, tear it back down again, sort of like that guy rolling the boulder up the hill. Each day, I forget the name from, what is it, Greek mythology? That's sort of like me with the soil, always rolling it up and rolling it back down. So, but yeah, I go fairly deep with it.
John, we don't have any last questions for you, but I wanted to recognize that John did put his email in the chat, so you can grab that if you need to. For all of our speakers, if you have questions that didn't get asked, or you have additional questions, or we want to follow up with them, you can go to their speaker profile and send them a message, and it will go from Huva directly to their email that they have given us. So they'll get that information. They're all farms that have online presence or blogs or social media, so you can find them that way as well. And I also shared a Southern SARE link about John Wilhoit's 3-wheel tractor as well. So I think that wraps us up for this session. We are super grateful to the 5 of you. Thank you very much for your generosity and your time and your creativity. We are grateful. We're grateful to everybody for being out there. Give us some feedback in that session survey, and we will see you at a really great keynote presentation starting at just a little bit at high noon Eastern time. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic few minutes before we see you again.